Hello there and welcome to the Dreamy Ocean channel. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe it's been a long day, or maybe you're the kind of person who likes to fall asleep while drifting through the mysteries of the deep ocean, where darkness is absolute and time moves differently. Either way, tonight's journey is for you. A journey not measured in miles but in centuries. A journey into the cold heart of the Arctic, where patience is not just a virtue, but the very essence of survival. You don't need to do anything now but rest. Let your breath slow your thoughts soften and your body grow light, as if you're floating gently in cold, dark water held up by something ancient and patient. Let the weight of the day dissolve into the darkness. Let the noise of the world fade into the quiet depths. Because tonight, we're going to meet a creature that has lived longer than nations, longer than languages, longer than the oldest trees still standing on Earth, longer even than the span of recorded history in many parts of the world. We're going to drift through the Arctic depths with the Greenland shark, a silent giant born before Shakespeare wrote his first play, before the printing press had spread across Europe, before the Renaissance had fully bloomed. A hunter that moves through freezing water so slowly it barely seems to move at all, gliding like a shadow through the abyss. A creature with parasites living in its eyes, turning them milky and blind, yet somehow it survives. It feeds, it grows, and it continues year after year, decade after decade, century after century, accumulating time the way glaciers accumulate ice, slowly, patiently, inexorably. Some of the Greenland sharks swimming beneath the Arctic ice today were already old when the United States declared independence. They were juveniles when Columbus sailed across the Atlantic, when Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa, when Copernicus placed the sun at the center of the solar system. They glide through a world we can barely imagine in water cold enough to kill most life within minutes in darkness, so complete that vision itself becomes not just unnecessary, but irrelevant. In this realm of eternal night, other senses reign: sound, smell, the faint electrical whisper of a beating heart. The Arctic Ocean is a world unto itself. In winter, the surface freezes solid, forming a ceiling of ice, several meters thick, that blocks out the sun and creates an upside-down landscape of frozen ridges and pressure cracks. The water below is just barely above freezing, hovering around minus 1.8 degrees Celsius. In some places cold enough that the very molecules of water move sluggishly, as if time itself has thickened. In summer, the ice breaks up and drifts, and the sun circles endlessly overhead, never setting, casting a strange, slanting light across the broken surface. But even in summer, the depths remain dark and cold, untouched by the seasons above. And somewhere in these depths, the Greenland shark swims. Or perhaps swims is too active a word. The shark drifts, it glides, it moves with a slowness that seems almost geological, as if it is not swimming through water at all, but through time itself. Its body is grey or brownish, blending with the murky water. Its skin is rough, covered with tiny scales that reduce friction. Its movements are economical, each stroke of the tail propelling it forward a few meters before momentum fades and another slow stroke begins. This is not a creature of speed or fury. This is a creature of patience, of waiting, of enduring. And in a world where most predators rely on speed, on bursts of energy, on the sudden strike, the Greenland shark has found a different path. It has learned to survive not by moving fast, but by moving slowly. Not by burning energy, but by conserving it. Not by living briefly and intensely, but by living long and quietly, letting the centuries pass like waves over stone. And just before we begin our deeper journey, If these calm, curious explorations help you unwind or give you a peaceful way to end your day, consider gently tapping the like button and subscribing to the channel. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But there is no rush. The like button will still be there when you wake. The subscribe button is not going anywhere. Everything can wait. For now, just let yourself be here in this moment, drifting downward into the story of a creature that has all the time in the world. Now let's begin our slow descent into the frozen abyss, where time itself seems to pause, where a single heartbeat can take 10 seconds, where a life can stretch across centuries, and where the oldest vertebrate on Earth waits in the darkness, patient and still, a living connection to a world that no longer exists and a world that is yet to come. The ancient guardian of the Arctic deep. In the cold, dark waters of the Arctic Ocean, where the sun disappears for months at a time and ice forms thick covers over the sea, something ancient moves through the depths. It is not a whale, though it is nearly as large. It is not a legend, though it has lived long enough to become one. It is the Greenland shark, and it holds within its body a secret that scientists are only now beginning to understand. The Greenland shark is a creature of superlatives. It is the longest-lived vertebrate on Earth, capable of living for more than 400 years. It is one of the largest sharks in the world, growing slowly, but continuously, throughout its enormously long life. It dwells in some of the most inhospitable waters on the planet, where temperatures hover just above freezing and pressure increases with every meter of depth. And perhaps most strangely, it swims through this world nearly blind, its eyes clouded by parasites that have attached themselves since youth. Yet it thrives. For centuries, people who lived in the Arctic regions knew of these sharks. Long before European explorers ventured into the icy waters of the far north indigenous communities, the Inuit of Greenland, Canada and Alaska, the Yupik of Western Alaska, the Sami of northern Scandinavia, all had names for this creature and stories about it. In Greenlandic, it is called Ekalusuak, meaning big fish. In Icelandic, it is hakal, though that name is used for both the shark and the fermented meat made from it. These communities encountered the sharks in many ways. Sometimes the sharks would be caught through holes in the ice during winter fishing. Sometimes they would be found washed ashore after storms, their massive bodies stranded on beaches of gravel and ice. Sometimes they would become entangled in fishing nets or lines meant for seals or fish. The sharks were always treated with a mixture of respect and wariness. They were large, powerful animals, but they moved slowly and seemed almost docile, unagitated by the presence of humans. The meat was known to be problematic. Fresh shark flesh would make dogs sick, and humans who ate it would become ill with symptoms of intoxication, dizziness, nausea, and a feeling of being drunk. This is because of the high concentrations of urea and TMAO in the tissues, which break down into toxic compounds when consumed. But indigenous communities also learned that if the meat was treated properly, buried in gravel or sand for months, to allow the toxins to leach out and the flesh to ferment and then dried. For additional months in the cold air, it could be rendered safe to eat. The result was not pleasant. A pungent, ammonia-scented meat with a texture like old leather, but it was edible, and in a harsh environment where food could be scarce, it was sometimes valuable. In Iceland, this preparation became part of the culinary tradition. Hakal fermented Greenland shark is still eaten today, though it is considered an acquired taste even by Icelanders. The shark is buried underground for 6 to 12 weeks, during which time the flesh begins to decompose and the urea converts to ammonia. The meat is then dug up and hung to dry for several more months, where the wind and air slowly desiccate it. What remains is a small, brownish cube of shark, fibrous and strong-smelling, usually served in very small pieces, alongside brennivine, a potent Icelandic schnapps. Visitors to Iceland are often encouraged to try it as a test of courage or a rite of passage, though many find the smell and taste overwhelming. But to science, the Greenland shark remained largely unknown until relatively recently. The early European explorers of the Arctic men like Martin Frobisher in the 16th century, William Baffin in the 17th, and James Cook in the 18th may have seen Greenland sharks or heard stories about them from Indigenous guides, but they did not study them in detail. The sharks were simply one of many strange and dangerous creatures that inhabited the frozen seas alongside polar bears, walruses, and the elusive narwhal. It wasn't until the 19th century that scientists began to take a serious interest in the Greenland shark. Specimens were collected and sent to museums in Europe and North America. Naturalists examined them, measured them, and tried to classify them within the broader family of sharks. They noted the shark's unusual features: the small eyes, the rounded snout, the heavy body, the rough skin. They noticed the eye parasites, the copepods, attached to the corneas, and wondered about their purpose. But the depths the sharks inhabited, the remoteness of their range, and the extreme conditions of their environment made them difficult to study in any systematic way. Most of what scientists learned came from specimens that had been caught incidentally by fishermen or washed ashore after death. Living sharks were rarely observed, and their behavior in the wild remained a mystery. How did they hunt? What did they eat? How long did they live? These questions lingered unanswered for decades. Some clues emerged from early fishing records. In the 1930s, a fisheries biologist in Greenland named Johannes Schmidt undertook a tagging study. He caught and tagged over 400 Greenland sharks, marking each one with a small metal tag bearing a unique number. The idea was that if any of these sharks were recaptured in the future, the tags could be recovered, and the time between tagging and recapture could be used to estimate growth rates and movements. Most of the tagged sharks were never seen again, but a few were recaptured years later, sometimes decades later. One shark tagged in 1936 was recaptured in 1952, 16 years later. By measuring the shark at both points, Schmidt was able to estimate that it had grown only about 8 to 16 centimeters over those 16 years. That is an average of 0.5 to 1 centimeter per year, an extraordinarily slow growth rate. This discovery was important because it provided the first quantitative evidence of how slowly Greenland sharks grow. And slow growth is often a sign of a long lifespan. Trees that grow slowly, like bristlecone pines, often live for thousands of years. Animals that grow slowly, like giant tortoises, often live for more than a century. The same appeared to be true for the Greenland shark. If it grew only a centimeter or two per year, and if some individuals were 5 or 6 meters long, then those individuals must be very old indeed. But how old, that question would not be answered for another 80 years. It wasn't until 2016 that researchers made the breakthrough that would change everything we thought we knew about vertebrate longevity. Using a technique borrowed from archaeology and geology, scientists examined the eye lenses of 28 Greenland sharks of various sizes. They applied radiocarbon dating to the crystalline proteins found in the lens nucleus, the innermost part of the eye that forms before birth and remains unchanged throughout life. What they found was astonishing. The largest shark in the study, a female measuring just over 5 meters long, was estimated to be 392 years old, give or take 120 years. That means she was born sometime between 1504 and 1744. The Renaissance was in full swing. The printing press, invented by Johannes Gutenberg only a few decades earlier, was revolutionizing the spread of knowledge across Europe. Martin Luther was preparing his reformation of the Catholic Church. Michelangelo was painting the Sistine Chapel. And this shark, this one individual creature, was beginning its life in the cold Atlantic waters, unaware of the human world above, unaware that it would outlive empires and kingdoms, unaware that it would become centuries later a symbol of longevity and endurance. In that moment, the Greenland shark became the oldest known vertebrate on Earth, surpassing even the bowhead whale, which can live for more than 200 years, and the Aldabra giant tortoise, which can reach ages of 150 or more. It shattered records, it opened questions, and it invited us to imagine what it means to live not just for decades, but for centuries. The study also revealed something else. Based on the size of pregnant females found over the years, scientists calculated that Greenland sharks don't reach sexual maturity until they are approximately 150 years old. That is a century and a half of growth, learning, and survival before they can reproduce for the first time. It is patience written into biology itself. These revelations sent ripples through the scientific community. How does an animal live for 400 years? What protects it from cancer disease and the slow decay that affects most living things? What does its genome look like? And perhaps, most intriguingly, what does the world look like to a creature that has witnessed centuries pass by? The Greenland shark does not live in the sunlit surface waters where most life thrives. It inhabits a realm of permanent twilight and total darkness, where the pressure is immense and the cold is relentless. It moves through this world like a shadow grey or brownish grey, its body thick and heavy, its movements slow and deliberate. It is a creature perfectly adapted to an environment that would kill most other animals within minutes. And yet, despite all we have learned, the Greenland shark remains mysterious. We do not know how many of them exist. We do not know exactly how they hunt. We do not fully understand their migrations, their social behavior, or their role in the Arctic ecosystem. They slip through our nets of knowledge as elusive as the dark waters they inhabit. But we are learning, slowly, patiently, in a way that mirrors the shark itself. We are beginning to uncover the secrets of this ancient creature. And as we do, we are finding that the Greenland shark has much to teach us, not just about longevity and survival, but about the nature of time itself. The 400-year life unlocking the longevity secret. When the scientists published their findings in the journal Science in August of 2016, the world took notice. The headline was simple but stunning. The Greenland shark may live for 400 years, making it the longest-lived vertebrate known to science. But behind that headline lay years of painstaking research, innovative techniques, and a deep dive into the biology of time itself. To understand how scientists determine the age of these sharks, we need to understand something about radiocarbon dating. This technique, commonly used to date archaeological artifacts and geological samples, relies on the presence of carbon-14, a radioactive isotope of carbon that occurs naturally in the atmosphere. Living organisms absorb carbon-14 throughout their lives, and when they die, the carbon-14 begins to decay at a known rate. By measuring how much carbon-14 remains, scientists can estimate how long ago the organism died. But the Greenland shark presented a unique challenge. Unlike trees which add growth rings each year, or certain fish whose ear bones contain annual markers, Greenland sharks have no hard tissues that record their age in an easily readable way. Their skeletons are made of cartilage, not bone, which does not preserve annual growth patterns. So scientists had to get creative. The answer lay in the shark's eyes, specifically in the lens. The lens of the eye grows in layers throughout an animal's life like an onion, but the very center of the lens, the nucleus, forms before birth and remains metabolically inactive from that point forward. It doesn't change. It doesn't get replaced. It simply exists, a time capsule from the moment of the shark's birth. The researchers extracted the lens nuclei from 28 Greenland sharks of varying sizes, ranging from 81 centimeters to just over 5 meters in length. They then measured the carbon-14 levels in the crystalline proteins of these lens nuclei. But there was a complication. In the 1950s and 1960s, atmospheric nuclear weapons testing dramatically increased the amount of carbon-14 in the environment. This created a distinct marker in the carbon-14 levels of anything that was alive during that time. By comparing the carbon-14 signatures in the shark lens nuclei to known atmospheric levels from different time periods, and by using the nuclear weapons testing as a reference point, the scientists were able to construct a timeline. Sharks born after the 1960s had elevated carbon-14 levels. Sharks born before that time had lower levels, corresponding to natural atmospheric carbon-14. They also knew from previous studies that newborn Greenland sharks are approximately 42 centimeters long. And they knew from historical tagging data that the sharks grow at a rate of only 0.5 to 1 centimeter per year. This incredibly slow growth rate meant that size could be used as a rough proxy for age, though with considerable uncertainty. When the team put all of this together, the results were remarkable. The smallest sharks in the study, those less than a meter long, were estimated to be juveniles, probably less than 50 years old. Mid-sized sharks around 2 to 3 meters were likely between 50 and 200 years old. And the larger sharks, those over 4 meters, were estimated to be more than 200 years old. The oldest individual, a female measuring 502 centimeters, had a carbon-14 signature that placed her birth somewhere between 1504 and 1744, with a midpoint estimate of 1624. That is 392 years before the study was conducted, give or take 120 years. Even accounting for the large uncertainty, she was at least 272 years old. More likely, she was somewhere around 400 years old. To put that in perspective, if she was indeed born around 1624, then when she was young, the Pilgrims were just arriving in Plymouth. Galileo was still alive. The 30 Years' War was raging across Europe. Shakespeare had been dead for only 8 years. And this shark, this one creature, was beginning its life in the cold Atlantic waters. She would have been growing slowly through the centuries as empires rose and fell. She would have been alive during the age of exploration, the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, 2 world wars, the Space Age. She would have been swimming through Arctic waters when the first submarines dove beneath the ice, when the first satellites looked down from orbit, when humans set foot on the moon. And she would still be growing, still hunting, still surviving. The implications were staggering. If Greenland sharks could live for 4 centuries, they were not just long-lived. They were operating on a completely different timescale than almost any other complex animal on Earth. A human lifetime, even a long one, would represent only a quarter of a Greenland shark's potential lifespan. To a 400-year-old shark, a century would pass like 25 years passes to us. But why? What evolutionary advantage does such extreme longevity provide? Part of the answer seems to lie in the environment. The Arctic and subarctic waters where Greenland sharks live are incredibly cold, often hovering around 1 to 4 degrees Celsius. Water this cold slows down chemical reactions, including the metabolic processes that power life. Everything happens more slowly in the cold. Movement is sluggish. Growth is incremental. But this also means that aging processes, including cellular damage and the accumulation of harmful mutations, occur more slowly as well. Scientists have long suspected that cold environments might promote longevity. Other cold water species like the ocean quahog clam can live for more than 500 years. Bowhead whales, which live in Arctic and subarctic waters, can reach ages of 211 years or more. There seems to be something about the cold, stable environment of polar seas that allows life to persist for extraordinary lengths of time. But the cold is not the whole story. There is something else going on at the genetic level, something encoded in the very DNA of the Greenland shark that helps explain its remarkable lifespan. And in recent years, scientists have begun to unlock those secrets as well. In 2024, researchers completed the first comprehensive sequencing of the Greenland shark genome. What they found was a genome nearly twice the size of the human genome, containing approximately 6.4 billion base pairs and more than 22,000 genes. Hidden within that genetic blueprint were clues to the shark's longevity. One of the most striking findings was the presence of multiple copies of genes involved in DNA repair. Every time a cell divides, there is a chance that errors will be introduced into the DNA. Over time, these errors accumulate, leading to mutations that can cause cancer or other age-related diseases. But the Greenland shark has extra copies of genes that help detect and repair these errors. In particular, they have multiple copies of the TP53 gene, often called the guardian of the genome, which plays a critical role in suppressing tumors and repairing damaged DNA. The researchers also found an unusually high number of genes related to the NF-κB signaling pathway, which regulates inflammation and immune responses. When this pathway is disrupted, the risk of cancer and other diseases increases. But in the Greenland shark, these genes appear to be duplicated and possibly enhanced, providing extra protection against the diseases of aging. Interestingly, some of these genetic duplications appear to have been caused by jumping genes or transposon segments of DNA that can copy themselves and insert into new locations in the genome. In many organisms, transposons are considered harmful, causing disruptions and mutations. But in the Greenland shark, they seem to have been co-opted for a beneficial purpose, creating extra copies of genes that help maintain health and longevity. The Greenland shark is not alone in this. Other long-lived species such as the bowhead whale and the Red Sea urchin also show similar genetic patterns. It seems that evolution has discovered repeatedly and independently certain genetic strategies for extending lifespan. And the Greenland shark represents one of the most extreme examples of those strategies in action. But even with all of this genetic protection, living for 400 years is not easy. It requires not just surviving the usual threats of predators, disease, and accidents, but also navigating the slow accumulation of damage that comes with time. Cells must be maintained. Proteins must be repaired or replaced. Metabolic waste must be managed. And all of this must happen efficiently enough to keep the organism healthy and functional across centuries. Scientists are still trying to understand exactly how the Greenland shark accomplishes this. Some believe that the shark's extremely slow metabolism plays a role. By living life in slow motion, the shark may reduce the rate at which damage accumulates. Others think that the cold environment itself may help preserve cellular structures, like keeping food in a freezer to prevent spoilage. There may also be other factors at play that we haven't discovered yet. The Greenland shark's genome is still revealing its secrets, and researchers continue to find new genes and pathways that may contribute to longevity. It is possible that the shark has multiple overlapping systems working together, each one providing a small advantage that when combined adds up to centuries of life. What is clear is that the Greenland shark represents a kind of natural experiment in extreme longevity. By studying it, scientists hope to learn not just about sharks, but about aging itself. What are the fundamental processes that limit lifespan? Can those processes be slowed or reversed? And might some of the genetic strategies used by the Greenland shark be applicable to other species, including humans? The goal, of course, is not to make humans live for 400 years. Most researchers agree that would come with its own set of challenges and ethical concerns. But what if we could use what we learn from the Greenland shark to extend the period of life during which humans remain healthy and active? What if we could delay the onset of age-related diseases like cancer, heart disease, and dementia? That would be a tremendous benefit, and it is the kind of insight that studying long-lived species like the Greenland shark might provide. For now, the 400-year-old shark remains a mystery we are only beginning to solve. Each discovery leads to new questions. Each answer reveals deeper layers of complexity. But that is the nature of science and the nature of the ocean itself. There are always more depths to explore, more secrets to uncover, more wonders waiting in the darkness. Life in the frozen abyss, Arctic adaptations. To understand the Greenland shark, we must first understand the world in which it lives. This is not the warm, sunlit waters of a coral reef or the temperate coastal zones where most sharks are found. This is the Arctic Ocean and the cold depths of the North Atlantic, a realm of ice darkness and crushing pressure. The Arctic is a place of extremes. In winter, the sun does not rise for months. The sea is covered with a thick layer of ice, sometimes several meters deep, cutting off the water below from the atmosphere above. Temperatures plunge. The air above the ice can reach 40 degrees Celsius or colder. Below the ice in the water where the Greenland shark lives, temperatures hover just above the freezing point of seawater, typically between 1.1 and 7.4 degrees Celsius. In summer, the opposite occurs. The sun never sets, circling the sky for weeks on end. The ice begins to break up, forming massive flows that drift with the currents. But even in summer, the water remains cold. The Arctic Ocean is one of the coldest bodies of water on Earth, and it is here in this frigid environment that the Greenland shark makes its home. But the Greenland shark does not stay in one place. Like many Arctic species, it migrates with the seasons, though its migrations are based more on depth and temperature than on distance. In winter, the sharks move into shallower waters, sometimes coming quite close to shore. They have been observed under the ice at latitudes as far north as 80 degrees, near the very top of the world. In summer, they descend into the deep, following the cold water as it sinks, or they move farther south into the North Atlantic. The depths they can reach are remarkable. Greenland sharks have been recorded at depths of more than 2,200 meters, over 7,000 feet below the surface. At these depths, the pressure is more than 200 times what it is at sea level. Sunlight does not penetrate this far. It is a world of absolute darkness, cold and stillness. And yet, the Greenland shark thrives there. To survive in such an environment, the shark has evolved a suite of adaptations that are nothing short of extraordinary. One of the most important is the presence of trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO, in its tissues. TMAO is a small organic molecule that acts as a kind of biological antifreeze. It helps stabilize proteins and cell membranes in the cold, preventing them from becoming too rigid or breaking down. Many deep-sea and cold water species produce TMAO, but the Greenland shark has exceptionally high concentrations of it, allowing it to function in water that would be lethal to most other animals. There is a cost to this adaptation, however. TMAO breaks down into trimethylamine, or TMA, which is toxic to most animals. It gives the flesh of the Greenland shark a strong ammonia-like odor and makes it poisonous to eat. For centuries, indigenous peoples of the Arctic knew this. They would catch Greenland sharks, but the meat had to be treated before it could be consumed. In Iceland, the traditional preparation involves burying the shark meat and letting it ferment for several months, then hanging it to dry for several more. The result is a dish called hakal, which is considered a delicacy, but is notorious for its powerful smell and acquired taste. The toxicity of the meat has had an interesting effect on the shark's relationship with humans. Because the flesh is not commercially viable, Greenland sharks were never targeted for food the way many other shark species were. Instead, they were hunted for their liver oil, which was used in lamps and later in industrial applications. But even that practice declined with the development of synthetic oils in the mid-20th century. Today, the main threat to Greenland sharks is not intentional hunting, but bycatch, the accidental capture of sharks in fishing nets and lines intended for other species. Another adaptation the Greenland shark has developed is a unique arrangement of hemoglobin molecules in its blood. Hemoglobin is the protein that carries oxygen from the gills to the tissues. Most sharks have one or two types of hemoglobin, but the Greenland shark has three. This allows it to efficiently extract oxygen from cold water, where oxygen is less readily available than in warmer water, and to transport that oxygen to tissues even under the stress of deep dives and low temperatures. The shark's circulatory system is also adapted for efficiency in the cold. Like other sharks, the Greenland shark is ectothermic, meaning it does not generate its own body heat the way mammals and birds do. Its body temperature is roughly the same as the surrounding water. But this is not a disadvantage in the Arctic. In fact, it may be an advantage. By not expending energy to maintain a constant internal temperature, the shark can survive on less food and live more efficiently. This brings us to another remarkable aspect of the Greenland shark's biology, its metabolism. The shark has one of the slowest metabolic rates of any fish. Studies have shown that a Greenland shark weighing around 224 kilograms needs only about 61 to 193 grams of food per day to meet its energy needs. That is less than a kilogram of food per day for an animal that weighs a quarter of a ton. By comparison, a human of average size needs to consume around 2,000 calories per day, which translates to roughly 500 to 1,000 grams of food, depending on the type of food. The slow metabolism has profound implications for the shark's lifestyle. It means the shark can go for long periods without eating. Some researchers estimate that a Greenland shark can survive for 175 to 250 days on a single large meal such as a seal. This ability to fast for months at a time is a crucial adaptation for an animal living in an environment where food is often scarce and unpredictable. But perhaps the most visible adaptation is the shark's slow movement. The Greenland shark is the slowest swimming fish in the ocean. Its average cruising speed is only about 0.34 meters per second, or roughly 1.2 kilometers per hour. That is slower than a human walking pace. Even at its maximum burst speed, the shark can only reach about 0.74 meters per second, or 2.7 kilometers per hour, which is still slower than most people can walk quickly. This slow movement is not a limitation, it is a strategy. In the cold, dark depths where the Greenland shark lives, speed is not as important as efficiency. The shark does not chase down fast-moving prey like a great white or a mako. Instead, it relies on stealth patience and the element of surprise. It drifts through the water like a shadow, barely disturbing the currents, conserving every bit of energy. And when an opportunity presents itself, it strikes with sudden, surprising force. The shark's body is built for this kind of hunting. It is thick-set and heavy with a large, rounded head and a short, blunt snout. Its eyes are small, often clouded by parasites, and its fins are relatively small as well, especially compared to more active shark species. The dorsal fins are tiny, barely protruding from the back. The pectoral fins are short and paddle-like. This body plan is not designed for speed or agility. It is designed for slow, steady movement through cold, dense water, for covering vast distances without expending much energy for waiting. In recent years, scientists have discovered that the Greenland shark's range is larger than previously thought. While it is primarily an Arctic and subarctic species, it has been found in waters much farther south than expected. In 2013, researchers caught a Greenland shark in the Gulf of Mexico at a depth of 1,149 meters and a temperature of 4.1 degrees Celsius. This was the southernmost confirmed sighting of the species and suggested that the sharks may use deep, cold water layers to travel to regions that would otherwise be too warm for them. More recently, there have been reports of possible Greenland shark sightings off the coast of Belize in the Caribbean, though these have not yet been confirmed. If true, it would extend the known range of the species even farther and suggest that the sharks are more adaptable and more widely distributed than we currently understand. Genetic studies have provided additional clues about the shark's history and distribution. By analyzing DNA from Greenland sharks caught in different locations, scientists have found evidence that the population was once more widespread and interconnected. But during the ice ages of the Pleistocene epoch, fluctuating glacial cycles and the expansion of sea ice likely fragmented the population, isolating groups of sharks in different regions. Over time, these isolated populations diverged slightly, though they remain a single species. Today, Greenland sharks are found throughout the Arctic Ocean, in the waters around Greenland, Iceland, Canada, and Russia. They are also found in the cold depths of the North Atlantic from the coasts of Norway and the Faroe Islands to the waters off New England and Newfoundland. They are in essence a circumpolar species adapted to the cold, dark waters that ring the top of the world. And in those waters they continue to live as they have for millions of years, moving slowly through the darkness, growing incrementally, surviving. They are creatures of the cold, shaped by it, defined by it, and utterly at home in an environment that would be hostile to almost any other large predator. They are in a very real sense the guardians of the deep, ancient and patient, watching over a world of ice and silence. The slowest life, metabolism, in slow motion. There is something almost meditative about the way a Greenland shark moves through the water. Imagine drifting through the cold, dark depths, your body moving with the slowness of a dream. Each motion deliberate, each movement conserved. No rushing, no wasted energy, just a quiet, steady glide through the abyss. This is the life of the Greenland shark, not the frenetic burst of a hunting great white or the sleek, high-speed cruise of a mako. This is life in slow motion, where every calorie is precious and every movement is measured against the cost of survival. The Greenland shark holds the distinction of being the slowest swimming fish in the ocean. Researchers have tracked these sharks using electronic tags that record depth, temperature, and acceleration. The data show that the sharks spend most of their time moving at speeds between 0.3 and 0.24 meters per second. To put that in perspective, that is roughly the speed of a very slow walk. A human strolling leisurely through a park moves faster than a Greenland shark cruising through the Arctic depths. Even when the shark accelerates, which it does, only rarely, it can reach a maximum speed of only about 0.74 meters per second, or just under 2.7 kilometers per hour. That is still slower than the average human walking speed, which is around 5 kilometers per hour. Most sharks, by contrast, can swim at speeds of 5 to 10 kilometers per hour when cruising, and some, like the short-fin mako, can reach bursts of more than 70 kilometers per hour. So why is the Greenland shark so slow? The answer lies in its metabolism. The shark has evolved to live on an extremely low energy budget, and slow movement is a key part of that strategy. Swimming requires energy. The faster you swim, the more energy you use. By moving slowly, the Greenland shark minimizes its energy expenditure and can survive on much less food than a more active shark would need. This low-energy lifestyle is made possible by the shark's environment. The cold water of the Arctic slows down all chemical reactions, including the metabolic processes that power muscle contraction and movement. At temperatures near freezing, enzymes work more slowly, ATP production is less efficient, and muscles contract more weakly. In warmer water, this would be a disadvantage, but in the Arctic, where all life is subject to the same constraints, it becomes a viable strategy. Studies of Greenland shark metabolism have revealed just how efficient these animals are. Researchers have measured the shark's oxygen consumption, a proxy for metabolic rate, and found that it is among the lowest of any fish. A Greenland shark weighing around 224 kilograms consumes only about 60 to 200 grams of food per day, depending on activity level and food availability. That is less than 1% of its body weight per day. For comparison, a similarly sized mammal such as a seal or a dolphin would need to consume several kilograms of food per day to maintain its body temperature and activity level. Even other sharks, which are also ectothermic and do not need to maintain a constant body temperature, typically require more food than a Greenland shark. The great white, for example, is estimated to need to consume about 1 to 2% of its body weight per day, which for a large individual would be several kilograms. The Greenland shark's low metabolic rate has another remarkable consequence: it can go for extremely long periods without eating. Scientists estimate that a Greenland shark can survive for 175 to 250 days, or roughly 6 to 8 months, on the energy stored from a single large meal, such as a seal. This ability to fast for months at a time is crucial in an environment where prey is often scarce and unpredictable, especially during the long Arctic winter when the sea is covered with ice and hunting opportunities are limited. The shark's body structure reflects this low-energy lifestyle. It is built for efficiency, not for speed. The body is thick-set and rounded, which reduces drag at slow speeds. The fins are small and stiff, which minimizes turbulence and energy loss. The skin is covered with small tooth-like scales called dermal denticles, which help streamline the body and reduce friction as the shark moves through the water. Even the shark's size plays a role. Greenland sharks are large animals, typically ranging from 4 to 5 meters in length, with some individuals reaching 6.4 meters or more. Large body size has several advantages in a cold environment. First, larger animals have a lower surface area to volume ratio, which means they lose heat more slowly than smaller animals. Second, larger animals have more mass and can store more energy in the form of fat and muscle, allowing them to survive longer periods without food. And third, larger animals often have lower mass-specific metabolic rates, meaning they need less energy per kilogram of body weight than smaller animals. The Greenland shark stores energy primarily in the form of fat, particularly in the liver. The liver of a large Greenland shark can account for up to 20% of its total body weight and is rich in oils and lipids. These energy stores are critical for surviving long fasting periods and for fueling the slow but continuous growth that characterizes the species. And the growth is indeed slow. As we mentioned earlier, Greenland sharks grow at a rate of only 0.5 to 1 centimeter per year. That is less than half an inch per year. A shark that is 5 meters long has been growing for approximately 400 to 500 years. Every centimeter represents a year or two of patient accumulation. Every meter represents a century of life. This slow growth is directly related to the shark's slow metabolism. Growth requires energy, and the shark has very little energy to spare. But slow growth also has advantages. It means the shark can continue to grow throughout its life, reaching larger and larger sizes as it ages. And in the ocean, size often translates to safety. A 5-meter shark has few natural predators. Even orcas, which are known to prey on other shark species, seem to avoid fully grown Greenland sharks, possibly because of the shark's size or possibly because of the toxicity of their flesh. The slow lifestyle of the Greenland shark extends beyond just movement and metabolism. It affects every aspect of the shark's biology. Sexual maturity is reached slowly at around 150 years of age. Reproduction is slow, with gestation periods that may last 8 to 18 years. Even aging appears to occur more slowly, with the shark showing few signs of senescence, even after centuries of life. This slow, patient existence is a stark contrast to the fast-paced, high-energy lives of most predators. But it is a strategy that has served the Greenland shark well for millions of years. In an environment where resources are scarce and survival is a marathon, not a sprint, slowness is not a disadvantage. It is wisdom. It is efficiency. It is life stretched out across time, savoring every moment, conserving every bit of energy, moving with the quiet confidence of a creature that knows it has centuries ahead. And as the shark drifts through the cold, dark water, barely moving, barely breathing, it reminds us that there is more than one way to live. That patience can be a form of power. That slowness can be a kind of grace. And that in the depths of the ocean, time itself moves differently, measured not in hours or days, but in the slow, steady accumulation of years and decades and centuries, one after another, without end. The blind hunter eye. Parasites and sensory worlds. If you could look into the eyes of a Greenland shark, you would see something strange. The eyes themselves are small, disproportionately small for such a large animal. And more often than not, they are clouded, milky, covered with what appears to be a pale, writhing growth. This is not a disease. It is not a malformation. It is a parasite, a small crustacean called Omatocoita elongata, and it has attached itself to the shark's cornea, where it will remain for the rest of the shark's life. The parasite is a copepod, a distant relative of shrimp and crabs, though it looks nothing like them. It is elongated and worm-like, about 3 centimeters long, with a pale, almost translucent body. At one end, it has a structure called a bulla, a bulbous attachment organ that it uses to anchor itself to the shark's eye. The bulla burrows into the cornea, the clear outer layer of the eye, and holds fast while the rest of the parasite's body dangles outward, exposed to the water. The infection rate is staggering. Studies have found that more than 84% of Greenland sharks in East Greenland waters are infected with these parasites. In some areas, the rate may be even higher. It is so common that finding a Greenland shark without an eye parasite is almost unusual. The parasites typically attach during the shark's early life, and once they are in place, they remain there permanently, feeding on the shark's corneal tissue and causing progressive damage to the eye. The effect on the shark's vision is profound. The attachment of the parasite and the subsequent scarring of the cornea cause the eye to become opaque, cloudy, and eventually non-functional. The shark becomes in effect blind, or at least severely visually impaired. Studies have shown that the infection causes the limbus epithelium, the boundary layer of the cornea, to thicken by about 50%. The cornea itself becomes increasingly damaged over time, and the shark's ability to see light or detect movement is greatly reduced. At first glance, this seems like a terrible affliction. Vision is one of the primary senses for most predators, especially in the ocean. Sharks are often thought of as visual hunters, using their keen eyesight to detect prey from a distance. So how does a blind shark survive, let alone thrive in the cold, dark waters of the Arctic? The answer is that the Greenland shark does not rely primarily on vision. Even without the parasites, its eyes are small and likely not very capable of forming detailed images, especially in the near-total darkness of the deep sea. Instead, the shark uses other senses to navigate and hunt, senses that are far more important in its environment than vision could ever be. The first of these is olfaction, the sense of smell. Sharks are famous for their extraordinary sense of smell, and the Greenland shark is no exception. It has large olfactory lobes in its brain, and its nostrils are positioned in a way that allows it to sample the water constantly as it swims. The shark can detect the scent of blood or decaying flesh from kilometers away, even in the cold water where scent molecules disperse more slowly than in warmer environments. This acute sense of smell allows the Greenland shark to locate carrion dead or dying seals, whales, or fish that have sunk to the ocean floor. Scavenging is thought to be a major part of the shark's diet, especially in the deep sea, where live prey may be scarce. The shark can follow a scent trail for hours, or even days, moving slowly and steadily toward the source until it finally arrives at a meal. But the Greenland shark is not just a scavenger, it is also an active predator, and for that, it relies on another remarkable sense: electroreception. Like all sharks, the Greenland shark has specialized organs called ampullae of Lorenzini, small pores, scattered across its snout and head that can detect the weak electrical fields generated by living organisms. Every time a muscle contracts, every time a heart beats, a tiny electrical signal is produced. And the Greenland shark can sense those signals even in complete darkness. This electroreception allows the shark to detect prey that is hidden, buried, or motionless. It can sense a fish lying still on the ocean floor, a seal sleeping in the water, or a squid drifting in the current. And because electrical signals travel well through water, the shark can detect prey from several meters away, even when it cannot see it. The shark also has another sensory system that plays a crucial role in hunting the lateral line. This is a series of fluid-filled canals that run along the sides of the shark's body, connected to the surface by small pores. The lateral line detects vibrations and pressure changes in the water, allowing the shark to sense the movement of nearby animals, the turbulence created by swimming fish, or the subtle currents that indicate the presence of prey. Together, these senses, olfaction, electroreception, and the lateral line, form a comprehensive sensory network that allows the Greenland shark to navigate and hunt effectively even without functional vision. The shark lives in a world of chemical gradients, electrical fields, and pressure waves, a world that is rich with information even if it is invisible to the human eye. But the question remains, why do the parasites attach to the shark's eyes in the first place? And why does the shark tolerate them? These are questions that scientists are still trying to answer. One early hypothesis was that the parasites might actually provide a benefit to the shark. Some researchers suggested that the pale, dangling body of the parasite might act as a lure, attracting curious fish or other prey toward the shark's mouth. The idea was that the parasite might be bioluminescent, glowing faintly in the dark and drawing in prey. This would be a form of symbiosis where both the shark and the parasite benefit from the arrangement. However, subsequent research has cast doubt on this hypothesis. Studies have found no evidence that Omatocoita elongata is bioluminescent. the parasite does not glow. And even if it did, it is not clear that fish would be attracted to a small glowing object in the deep sea where bioluminescence is actually quite common and often serves as a warning signal rather than an attractant. Another possibility is that the shark simply has no effective way to remove the parasites. Once they attach, they burrow into the cornea and anchor themselves firmly. The shark cannot scratch its eyes or remove the parasites with its fins. And because the shark's vision is not critical to its survival, the loss of eyesight may not impose a significant cost. In evolutionary terms, if the parasite does not seriously reduce the shark's ability to find food or reproduce, there may be no strong selective pressure to evolve defenses against it. It is also possible that the relationship is more complex than we currently understand. Some parasites, even those that seem harmful, can have subtle effects on their hosts that might, in some circumstances, be neutral or even beneficial. For example, the parasite might trigger changes in the shark's behavior or physiology that we have not yet detected. Or the parasite might play a role in the shark's social interactions, if such interactions exist, which is something we know very little about. What is clear is that the Greenland shark has adapted to life without vision. It has evolved sensory systems that compensate for the lack of eyesight, and it has developed hunting strategies that rely on those alternative senses. In the darkness of the deep sea, where light is absent and vision is useless, the shark has learned to perceive the world in other ways. And in a way, this makes the Greenland shark even more remarkable. It is not just a long-lived animal, it is an animal that has thrived despite what to us would seem like a severe disability. It is a testament to the adaptability of life, to the many ways that organisms can sense and respond to their environment, and to the fact that the ocean is a world of senses far beyond what we experience on land. As the shark drifts through the cold, dark water, its clouded eyes see nothing, or almost nothing. But it does not need to see. It can smell the faint trace of blood from kilometers away. It can sense the electrical flicker of a heartbeat through the darkness. It can feel the pressure wave created by a swimming seal, and with these senses it hunts, it feeds, it survives. Blind, but not helpless. Impaired, but not defeated. A creature perfectly adapted to a world of darkness where vision is irrelevant and other senses reign supreme. The diet of a patient predator. What does a creature that lives for 400 years eat? The answer, it turns out, is almost anything it can find. The Greenland shark is a generalist feeder, an opportunistic predator and scavenger that consumes a wide variety of prey, depending on what is available in its environment. But the specifics of its diet are still being pieced together, and some of the findings have been surprising, even shocking. Much of what we know about the Greenland shark's diet comes from examining the stomach contents of sharks that have been caught as bycatch or found dead. These studies have revealed a menu that ranges from the expected to the bizarre. Fish make up the bulk of the diet, accounting for roughly 70% of the food consumed by adult sharks. Common prey species include cod, halibut skates, wolffish, redfish, and other bottom-dwelling or slow-moving fish that inhabit the cold waters of the Arctic and North Atlantic. But the shark's diet is not limited to fish. Marine mammals, particularly seals, make up another 10 to 20% of the diet. Seals are rich in fat and provide a substantial amount of energy, making them valuable prey. The sharks have been found with entire seals in their stomachs, sometimes freshly killed, with little sign of decay. This suggests that the sharks are capable of actively hunting seals, not just scavenging carcasses. And this raises an interesting question. How does a shark that swims slower than a human walks manage to catch a seal, an animal that is fast, agile, and alert? The answer may lie in stealth and ambush. One hypothesis is that the Greenland shark approaches sleeping seals, those resting at the surface or on ice floes, and attacks before the seal can react. Seals sleep for short periods throughout the day and night, and during these brief naps, they are vulnerable. A slow-moving predator that can approach silently and strike suddenly might have a brief window of opportunity. Another possibility is that the sharks target sick, injured, or very young seals that are less able to escape. Or they may simply be scavenging seal carcasses that sink after dying from other causes, such as predation by orcas or polar bears, or natural deaths due to disease or old age. But the most remarkable findings come from the truly unusual items that have been found in Greenland shark stomachs. In one case, the remains of an entire reindeer were discovered inside a shark caught near Greenland. A reindeer is a terrestrial animal, a member of the deer family that lives on land. How did it end up in the stomach of a deep-sea shark? The most likely explanation is that the reindeer drowned while crossing a river, or fell through ice and its body sank or was washed out to sea where the shark found and consumed it. Other cases have included horse remains, polar bear fur and bones, and even parts of other Greenland sharks, suggesting that cannibalism may occasionally occur. In one historical account from the 19th century, a human leg was reportedly found in the stomach of a Greenland shark caught near Pond Inlet in Canada. However, this report was never scientifically verified, and there are no modern confirmed cases of Greenland sharks attacking or consuming humans. Given the extreme cold of the waters they inhabit and the rarity of human swimmers in those areas, the risk to humans is considered negligible. The diversity of prey items found in Greenland shark stomachs has led some researchers to conclude that the sharks are highly opportunistic, eating whatever they encounter. If a carcass is available, they will scavenge it. If live prey presents an opportunity, they will take it. This flexibility may be another key to their survival in an environment where food is unpredictable and often scarce. But there is another layer to the story. Recent research has revealed that the Greenland shark's diet changes as it grows. This phenomenon, known as an ontogenetic diet shift, is common in many predators, but it is particularly pronounced in the Greenland shark. Juveniles, those less than 2 meters long, feed primarily on squid and smaller fish. These prey items are abundant in the mid-water column where young sharks spend much of their time. As the sharks grow and mature, their diet shifts toward larger prey. They begin to consume more bottom-dwelling fish, such as cod and halibut, and they start to incorporate marine mammals, especially seals, into their diet. This shift may be related to changes in the shark's size, behavior, and habitat use. Larger sharks are better equipped to take down larger prey, and they may also be more likely to encounter seals in the deeper, colder waters where adult sharks spend more time. Interestingly, isotope analysis of Greenland shark tissue has provided additional insights into their diet. By measuring the ratios of stable isotopes of carbon and nitrogen in the shark's muscle and liver tissue, scientists can infer what the shark has been eating over the past several months, or even years. These studies have confirmed the dietary shift from squid and small fish in juveniles to larger fish and mammals in adults. They have also suggested that Greenland sharks may feed at multiple depths and in multiple habitats, moving between shallow coastal waters and the deep sea in search of food. The shark's feeding mechanism is also worth noting. Like many sharks, the Greenland shark has a powerful bite, but its teeth are unusual. The upper teeth are narrow and pointed, designed for grasping and holding prey. The lower teeth are broader and more blade-like, with serrated edges designed for cutting and tearing. When the shark bites into prey, it often shakes its head from side to side, using the saw-like motion to cut through flesh and bone. But the Greenland shark also uses a technique called suction feeding. By rapidly expanding its mouth and throat, the shark creates a vacuum that sucks in water and anything nearby, including prey. This is particularly useful for capturing smaller or more elusive prey such as squid or fish that might otherwise escape. The shark can then close its mouth and expel the water through its gills, trapping the prey inside. There is also evidence that Greenland sharks may use their slow, stealthy movements to their advantage when hunting. By drifting almost motionlessly through the water, the shark may be able to approach prey without alerting it. The shark's grey or brownish coloration helps it blend into the murky, dim waters of the deep sea, making it even more difficult to detect. And when the shark is close enough, it can strike with surprising speed, lunging forward and snapping its jaws shut before the prey has time to react. The circular bite marks found on some prey animals, including other sharks and seals, are a distinctive signature of the Greenland shark. These marks are caused by the shark's jaw structure and the way it bites down on its prey. The marks have been used by researchers to identify Greenland shark predation events and to study the shark's hunting behavior. Despite all that we have learned, many questions remain. We still do not know exactly how often Greenland sharks feed, how much they eat in a typical year, or how their feeding behavior changes with age and season. We do not know whether they are primarily solitary hunters or whether they sometimes cooperate or aggregate around food sources. And we do not know how climate change and shifting ocean conditions might affect their prey availability and feeding success. What we do know is that the Greenland shark is a patient predator, a slow-moving hunter that has learned to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth by being flexible, opportunistic, and efficient. It does not waste energy chasing prey it cannot catch. It does not pass up a meal when one is available, and it waits drifting through the darkness, sensing the world around it, ready to seize any opportunity that presents itself. In the cold, slow rhythms of the Arctic, deep patience is not just a virtue, it is a survival strategy. Reproduction at a glacial pace. In the story of the Greenland shark, everything happens slowly. Growth is slow. Movement is slow. Aging too seems to unfold at a languid pace. But nowhere is this slowness more pronounced than in reproduction. To reproduce, a Greenland shark must wait longer than most animals live. It must endure more than a century of survival before its body is ready. It must navigate the dangers of the Arctic, the risks of predation, the threats of starvation and injury, all while still technically a juvenile, sexually immature, unable to pass its genes to the next generation. As we discussed earlier, Greenland sharks do not reach sexual maturity until they are approximately 150 years old. That is a century and a half of growing, surviving, learning, and waiting before they are capable of producing offspring. 150 years. Think about that for a moment. A century and a half is longer than most countries have existed in their current form. It is longer than the entire history of automobiles, airplanes, and modern medicine. It is a span of time that encompasses 5 or 6 human generations, from great-great-great-grandparent to newborn child. And for the Greenland shark, it is merely adolescence. For comparison, most other shark species reach maturity within 5 to 20 years. The spiny dogfish, another cold water species, matures at about 20 to 25 years. The great white shark, despite its size and reputation, reaches maturity by age 25 to 30. Even long-lived species like the whale shark and the basking shark mature within 25 to 35 years. But the Greenland shark operates on an entirely different timescale, one measured not in decades, but in centuries. The age of sexual maturity is determined more by size than by time, though the two are obviously related given the shark's slow growth rate. Female Greenland sharks reach maturity when they are about 4.19 meters long, give or take a few centimeters. Males mature at a smaller size, about 2.84 meters. Given the shark's growth rate of 0.5 to 1 centimeter per year, this means females must grow for approximately 400 to 420 centimeters over the course of 150 to 200 years, while males need only about 280 centimeters, which might take 100 to 150 years. The size difference between males and females is typical of many shark species, a phenomenon known as sexual size dimorphism. In most cases, females are larger, possibly because larger females can produce more or larger offspring, which increases their reproductive success. For a species like the Greenland shark, which has a very low reproductive rate, any advantage that increases the number or quality of offspring would be strongly favored by natural selection. But reaching maturity is only the beginning. The reproductive process itself is extraordinarily slow, even by the already glacial standards of this species. Greenland sharks are oviviparous, which means the females give birth to live young rather than laying eggs. The embryos develop inside the mother's body, each one enclosed in a transparent egg case and nourished by a yolk sac rather than a placental connection. There is no direct transfer of nutrients from mother to offspring, no umbilical cord, no exchange of blood. The embryos are essentially self-contained, drawing all their energy from the yolk that was packaged into the egg before fertilization. The gestation period, the time from fertilization to birth, is estimated to be between 8 and 18 years. That is the longest gestation period of any vertebrate. To put that in perspective, elephants, which are famous for their long pregnancies, carry their young for about 22 months, just under 2 years. The frilled shark, another deep-sea species, has a gestation period of about 3.5 years, which until recently was considered one of the longest among sharks. But the Greenland shark surpasses all of these by a wide margin. 8 to 18 years, nearly 2 decades. An entire human childhood could pass during a single Greenland shark pregnancy. An 18-year pregnancy is difficult to comprehend. It means that a female Greenland shark that becomes pregnant today might not give birth until after the year 2042. The pups growing inside her would develop through an entire generation of human time, slowly maturing in the cold, dark confines of her uterus, waiting patiently for the moment when they are ready to enter the world. During that time, the mother would continue her slow movements through the Arctic waters, hunting when necessary, fasting when food is scarce, migrating with the seasons, all while carrying her developing offspring inside her. Why such a long gestation? Part of the answer may lie in the cold temperatures. All biological processes slow down in the cold, including embryonic development. Cells divide more slowly. Tissues grow more slowly. The formation of organs and systems takes more time. But the long gestation may also be adaptive. By keeping the embryos inside for such a long period, the mother can ensure that they are born at a large size, which may improve their chances of survival in the harsh Arctic environment. The litter size, the number of pups born in a single pregnancy, is a subject of ongoing debate among scientists. Early studies based on observations of a few pregnant females dissected in the mid-20th century suggested that Greenland sharks produce around 10 pups per litter. These were relatively small samples, and the data were not always carefully recorded. In some cases, only the presence of embryos was noted, not their exact number or size. but the figure of 10 pups per litter became widely cited in the scientific literature and was repeated for decades. However, more recent research has challenged this estimate. A comprehensive study published in 2020 examined the reproductive biology of 312 Greenland sharks, collected over the past 60 years from various locations across the Arctic and North Atlantic. The researchers focused on the ovaries of mature females, carefully counting and measuring the developing eggs or ova present within the ovarian tissue. They found that the ovarian fecundity, the total number of eggs a female can produce, ranges from 400 to 649, with larger females capable of producing more eggs than smaller ones. The eggs themselves are large, about 6 to 8 centimeters in diameter, which is typical for sharks that give birth to live young, as the yolk must provide all the nutrition the embryo needs during its development. But not all of these eggs will develop into pups. In ovoviviparous sharks, embryonic development often involves competition among embryos, and not all fertilized eggs survive to birth. There may also be reabsorption of some embryos if conditions are poor, or if the mother's body cannot support the full litter. Based on comparisons with other species in the same family, the Somniosidae, or sleeper sharks, the researchers estimated that a pregnant Greenland shark might carry between 200 and 324 embryos at a time, depending on her size and condition. If this estimate is correct, it would make the Greenland shark one of the most fecund shark species, producing far more offspring per pregnancy than previously thought. However, this estimate remains highly uncertain. The challenge is that very few pregnant Greenland sharks have been studied in detail, and those that have been examined often come from historical collections where data on the number and size of embryos were not carefully recorded. Some specimens were partially damaged, others were poorly preserved, and in many cases only a few notes or sketches remain to tell us what was found. As a result, there is still significant disagreement in the scientific literature about how many pups a Greenland shark typically produces. Some researchers argue for the lower estimate of 10 pups based on direct observations of embryos. Others argue for the higher estimate of 200 or more, based on ovarian fecundity and comparisons with related species. The truth may lie somewhere in between, or it may vary depending on the size and age of the female, the availability of food, and other environmental factors. What is more certain is that Greenland sharks have a long, reproductive lifespan. Given that they can live for 400 years, and may begin reproducing around age 150, they potentially have 200 to 250 years of reproductive activity ahead of them. If a female reproduces multiple times during this period, even if pregnancies are spaced many years apart, she could produce many hundreds of offspring over her lifetime. Some estimates, based on the assumption of multiple pregnancies over a 200-year reproductive lifespan, suggest that a single female might give birth to anywhere from 200 to 700 pups during her life. But again, these numbers are highly speculative and depend on assumptions about litter size, pregnancy intervals, and survival rates that are not yet well understood. The newborn pups are relatively large, measuring between 35 and 45 centimeters, at birth roughly the length of a small house cat. This is substantial for a shark pup. Many smaller shark species give birth to pups that are only 15 to 20 centimeters long. The large size at birth likely improves the pup's chances of survival in the harsh Arctic environment. Larger pups are less vulnerable to predators such as other sharks or large fish. They are better able to retain body heat in cold water, though since they are ectothermic, this is less of an issue than it would be for a mammal, and they are more capable of hunting for their own food from the moment they are born. After birth, the pups are on their own. There is no parental care in sharks, no guarding of the young, no teaching of hunting techniques. The mother does not protect or feed her offspring. They must fend for themselves from the moment they enter the world, navigating the cold, dark waters, finding food, avoiding predators, and growing slowly into adulthood. Many do not survive. Juvenile mortality is thought to be high, though exact figures are unknown. Young sharks are vulnerable to predation by larger fish seals, orcas, and other sharks. They may also struggle to find enough food, especially in the nutrient-poor waters of the deep Arctic. But those that do survive will grow slowly, patiently, adding a centimeter or two to their length each year, moving gradually through the decades towards sexual maturity, and eventually their own opportunity to reproduce. The slow reproductive rate of the Greenland shark has important implications for conservation. Because the sharks reproduce so infrequently and take so long to reach maturity, their populations are extremely vulnerable to overfishing or other sources of mortality. If too many sharks are removed from the population, it can take centuries for the population to recover, if it recovers at all. This is one of the reasons why the Greenland shark was reclassified as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List in 2020, up from near threatened in 2006. Historically, Greenland sharks were hunted for their liver oil. In the early 20th century, particularly in the 1920s and 1930s, thousands of sharks were caught each year off the coast of Greenland. Some estimates suggest that as many as 44,000 sharks were killed annually during the peak of the fishery. The liver of a large Greenland shark can contain several hundred liters of oil, which was used for lamps machinery and later for industrial applications. The fishery declined after the 1960s when synthetic oils became available and demand for shark liver oil dropped. But by that time, the damage had been done. Populations of Greenland sharks had been severely reduced, and because of their slow reproduction, they have not yet recovered. Today, the primary threat to Greenland sharks is bycatch, the accidental capture of sharks in fishing gear intended for other species. Greenland sharks are often caught in gill nets, long lines, and trawls targeting fish like cod halibut and Greenland halibut. An estimated 3,500 Greenland sharks are caught as bycatch each year in the Arctic and North Atlantic. Many of these sharks are already dead by the time the nets are hauled in, and those that are released alive may be injured or stressed, reducing their chances of survival. Climate change also poses a threat. As sea ice continues to retreat and ocean temperatures rise, the habitat available to Greenland sharks may shrink. Warmer waters could force the sharks into deeper, less productive areas, reducing their access to food. Changes in the distribution of prey species such as cod and seals could also affect the shark's ability to find food. And increased human activity in the Arctic, including shipping oil and gas exploration and expanded fisheries, could lead to more frequent encounters between sharks and fishing gear. Given these threats, conserving Greenland sharks will require international cooperation and careful management. Because the sharks are slow to reproduce, and long-lived, any conservation measures will need to be sustained for decades, if not centuries, to be effective. Protecting critical habitats, reducing bycatch, and monitoring populations are all important steps. But perhaps the most important step is simply recognizing the value of these ancient creatures and the unique role they play in the Arctic ecosystem. The Greenland shark is not just a long-lived animal. It is a window into deep time, a living connection to centuries past, and a reminder of how slowly life can unfold when given the chance. In a world that moves faster and faster, where everything is measured in days or weeks, the Greenland shark asks us to slow down, to think in terms of decades and centuries, and to consider what it means to be patient, not just as individuals, but as a species, drifting into deep time. And so as we near the end of our journey through the cold, dark waters of the Arctic, let us pause for a moment and reflect on what the Greenland shark represents. It is not just an animal, it is a symbol, a reminder, a quiet teacher in the language of time. Imagine being born in the year 1624, the year that Galileo Galilei published his dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, challenging the geocentric view of the universe. The year that New Amsterdam, which would later become New York City, was founded by Dutch colonists. The year that the first permanent European settlement in what is now Delaware was established. Imagine being born in that year and living through everything that followed. You would witness the English Civil War, the fall of monarchies, the rise of republics, the Enlightenment with its celebration of reason and science, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution transforming human society from agrarian to industrial, from rural to urban, from hand tools to steam engines and factories. You would see the abolition of slavery in much of the world, though that struggle would take centuries. You would witness the invention of the telegraph, the telephone, the electric light. You would see the first automobiles, the first airplanes, the first journeys into space. You would live through 2 world wars. You would see the rise and fall of empires, the British Empire, the German Empire, the Soviet Union. Each one seeming permanent in its time, each one eventually crumbling. You would witness the development of nuclear weapons, the Cold War, the fall of the Berlin Wall. You would see the dawn of the computer age, the internet, the transformation of human communication, from letters carried by ships to instant global connectivity. You would watch as the human population grew from 500 million to 8 billion, as cities expanded, as forests fell, as the climate began to warm. And through all of this, you would still be alive, still growing if only by 1 centimeter or 2 each year, still hunting in the cold, dark waters of the Arctic, still swimming through a world that has changed almost beyond recognition, while you fundamentally remain the same. This is the experience of the Greenland shark, or at least it might be. We cannot know what, if anything, the shark thinks or feels. We cannot know if it has memories that stretch across centuries, or if each moment is simply another moment in an endless present. We cannot know if the shark is aware of its own age, of the passage of time, of the slow accumulation of years. But we can imagine. And in imagining, we can begin to understand the profound strangeness of a life that spans not just years, but centuries. The Greenland shark challenges our assumptions about what is possible. We live in a world where human lifespans rarely exceed 100 years, where most animals live for just a few years or decades, where time feels short and urgent. Even when we try to think in longer timescales, our minds struggle. 100 years seems like a long time. 200 years seems almost incomprehensible. 400 years that stretches beyond the reach of personal memory, beyond the span of any living tradition, into the realm of recorded history and archaeology. But the Greenland shark shows us that life can unfold at a much slower pace. That an animal can take 150 years to reach maturity, 150 years longer than most nations have existed in their current form. That a pregnancy can last nearly 2 decades longer than the entire childhood and adolescence of a human being. That growth can happen so slowly, it is almost imperceptible from year to year. Just 1 centimeter, perhaps 2 yet. Over the course of centuries, it produces a creature of immense size and power. The shark also reminds us of how much we still have to learn. Despite decades of research centuries, if we count the accumulated knowledge of indigenous peoples, we still do not know how many Greenland sharks exist in the world. We have estimates, rough guesses based on catch rates and sonar surveys, but no real census. We do not know exactly where they go or what they do in the deep, dark waters where they spend most of their time. We do not know how they navigate across vast distances covering thousands of kilometers in their migrations, moving between feeding grounds and breeding areas with precision that suggests some form of internal map or compass. We do not know how they communicate, if they communicate at all. Do they make sounds? Do they use body language? Do they recognize each other as individuals? These questions remain unanswered. We do not fully understand how they hunt. We know they eat seals, fish, squid, and carrion. We know they can swallow large prey whole. But we do not know how a shark that swims slower than a human walks manages to catch a seal, an animal that is fast, agile, and alert. The theories we have ambush predation targeting sleeping seals, scavenging carcasses are plausible, but they have not been directly observed. No one has witnessed a Greenland shark successfully hunting a live seal in the wild. The act itself, if it happens, occurs in darkness in cold water far from human eyes. We do not know how they reproduce in the wild. We have studied dead sharks, examined their ovaries and testes, counted embryos, measured eggs. But we have never witnessed Greenland shark mating. We do not know where it happens or how. Do the sharks gather in specific locations? Do males compete for females? Is there courtship, or is the process quick and utilitarian? How long do the sharks stay together, if at all? And what happens to the newborn pups? Where do they go? How do they survive their first years? These are fundamental questions, and we have few answers. We do not know how they avoid disease and injury across such extraordinarily long lifespans. Cancer should be a major threat to any animal that lives for centuries. The longer an organism lives, the more cell divisions occur, and the more chances there are for mutations to arise. And yet, Greenland sharks seem to be remarkably resistant to cancer. We have found clues in their genome, extra copies of tumor suppressor genes, enhanced DNA repair mechanisms, but we do not yet understand the full picture. How does the shark's immune system work? How does it respond to infections, to parasites beyond the eye copepods, to wounds? These are areas of active research, but the answers are still emerging. Every answer we find leads to new questions. Every discovery reveals new mysteries. And that is as it should be. The ocean is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a living, changing, endlessly complex world. And the Greenland shark is one of its most remarkable inhabitants. To study the shark is not to conquer it or to fully understand it. It is to engage with it, to ask questions, to listen to what the ocean is telling us. And the ocean is telling us that life is far more diverse, more adaptable, and more enduring than we often give it credit for. In recent years, scientists have made tremendous progress in understanding the genetics of the Greenland shark. They have sequenced its genome, all 6.45 billion base pairs of it, identifying more than 22,000 genes. They have found genes associated with longevity and cancer resistance genes that repair DNA genes that regulate inflammation and immune responses. They have begun to unravel the molecular mechanisms that allow the shark to live for so long, to survive in such a harsh environment, to thrive where most other animals would perish. But this is just the beginning. There are still thousands of genes whose functions we do not understand, still pathways and processes that remain hidden, still secrets locked away in the shark's DNA waiting to be discovered. Other researchers are studying the shark's metabolism, its heart, its behavior, and its ecology. They are using electronic tags to track the shark's movements through the ocean, recording their depths, their temperatures, their activity levels. Some tags remain attached for months or even years, providing a detailed record of where the sharks go and what they do. They are collecting tissue samples to study the shark's diet, analyzing stable isotopes to determine what the sharks have been eating and at what depth. They are examining the shark's exposure to pollutants, to heavy metals like mercury and cadmium, to organic contaminants like PCBs and DDT, trying to understand how these substances accumulate in the shark's tissues and what effects they might have on health and longevity. They are comparing the Greenland shark to other long-lived species, looking for common patterns and shared strategies for extending lifespan. Bowhead whales, Red Sea urchins, ocean quahogs, naked mole rats, Galapagos, giant tortoises. Each of these species has evolved its own approach to longevity, its own genetic and physiological adaptations. By comparing them, scientists hope to identify universal principles of aging mechanisms that might be common to all long-lived species, or at least to many of them. And perhaps eventually those insights could be applied to humans, not to make us live for 400 years, that would raise profound ethical and social challenges, but to help us live healthier lives for longer, to extend the period during which we remain active, engaged, and free from debilitating age-related diseases. All of this research is important not just for understanding the Greenland shark, but for understanding life itself. The insights we gain from studying long-lived species could one day help us develop new treatments for age-related diseases, for cancer, for Alzheimer's, for heart disease. They could help us understand why some tissues age faster than others, why some organs fail while others remain functional. They could reveal new targets for drug development, new ways to slow or reverse cellular aging, new approaches to maintaining health across the lifespan. The Greenland shark is not just a scientific curiosity. It is a potential source of knowledge that could benefit all of humanity. But perhaps more importantly, the Greenland shark reminds us to slow down, to be patient, to think in longer timescales. In a world that often feels like it is accelerating out of control, where change happens faster than we can process it, where technology advances at exponential rates, where news cycles spin faster and faster, the Greenland shark offers a different model. It shows us that there is value in slowness, in taking the time to do things right, in not rushing through life, but savoring it, moment by moment, year by year, century by century. The shark moves through the cold, dark water with a quiet confidence. It does not hurry. It does not panic. It does not worry about deadlines or schedules. It simply is. It exists in the present, but it carries with it the weight of the past, the memory of centuries lived, the knowledge accumulated over a lifetime that spans epochs. It is a creature of deep time, a living fossil, a bridge between the world that was and the world that is, and the world that will be. And as we think about the Greenland shark swimming somewhere beneath the Arctic ice at this very moment, we can take comfort in knowing that it is still there, still growing, still hunting, still surviving. It has outlasted empires and ideologies, wars and revolutions, plagues and famines. It has seen the world change in ways we can only imagine, and it continues patient and persistent, a testament to the resilience of life, to the power of adaptation, to the quiet strength that comes from moving slowly and deliberately through a world that often values speed above all else. If you enjoyed this journey through the cold, dark depths, I invite you to like and subscribe to the Sleepy Science channel. It truly helps this little corner of calm reach the next wandering mind, someone out there who might need a quiet place to rest. A gentle place to let the day fall away. A space where time moves differently, where curiosity is welcomed, and where sleep comes naturally. But for now, just breathe. Let your thoughts drift like slow currents in deep water. Let your body grow heavy and still sinking gently into comfort. There is no need to hold onto anything, no need to remember every fact or detail. They will still be there tomorrow. For now, they can simply fade into the background like distant stars dimming as dawn approaches. Imagine yourself floating in the cold, dark sea, held up by the water, weightless and free. The pressure surrounds you, but it does not crush you. It holds you gently like a hug from the ocean itself. The cold touches you, but it does not harm you. It is bracing, refreshing, a reminder that you are alive. You are safe here in the quiet depths where time moves slowly and nothing is urgent. Above you, the ice forms a ceiling dim and distant, filtering what little light reaches down from the surface. You can see the texture of it rough and uneven with ridges and cracks running through it, like rivers frozen in place. But you are far below that now. You are drifting deeper into the layers of the ocean where light fades completely, where the only illumination comes from the faint, bioluminescent flashes of tiny organisms, glowing and fading like stars blinking out. Below you, the ocean floor stretches away into darkness too far to see. But you know it is there, solid and ancient, covered with sediment that has drifted down from above for millions of years. Layer upon layer, a record of everything that has lived and died in the water column above. Somewhere down there, whale bones lie on the bottom, slowly being consumed by specialized bacteria and worms that can digest the oils locked in the bone. Somewhere down there, the remains of ancient ships rest in the muck, their wood soft and eaten away their metal, corroded into lace-like structures. The ocean floor is a museum, a graveyard, a library of time. And all around you, the water is filled with life you cannot see. Tiny plankton drifting with the currents, their bodies no bigger than grains of sand, yet each one a complete organism, feeding, reproducing, dying. Fish moving in slow schools, their bodies adapted to the pressure and the cold, their eyes large to capture what little light remains. Jellyfish pulsing through the water, translucent and ghostly, their tentacles trailing behind them like silk scarves. And somewhere far away, perhaps just beyond the edge of your perception, a Greenland shark glides through the abyss. You cannot see it, not directly, but you can sense it. You can feel the disturbance it creates in the water as it moves, a subtle shift in pressure, a gentle wave that spreads outward from its massive body. You can sense its presence, ancient and patient, a creature that has been here long before you and will be here long after you are gone. The shark moves forward, barely moving at all, a slow, steady glide through the cold, each stroke of the tail propelling it a few meters, then gliding, conserving energy, letting momentum carry it forward. Its clouded eyes see nothing or almost nothing, but it does not need to see. It can smell the faint trace of blood from kilometers away, a single drop, diluted in millions of liters of water, yet still detectable, still traceable. It can sense the electrical flicker of a heartbeat through the darkness, the faint signal produced by muscle contractions, by the beating of a distant heart. It can feel the pressure wave created by a swimming seal, the ripples in the water that tell a story of movement and direction. And as the shark moves, you move with it. You drift alongside it, matching its pace, feeling the rhythm of its slow heartbeat, the deliberate contractions of its muscles, the gentle sway of its body from side to side. There is no rush. There is no destination. There is only the movement itself, the slow glide through the water, the quiet existence in a world without light. Let yourself become the shark for a moment. Feel what it feels. The cold water flowing over your skin, each molecule sliding past, carrying information, carrying sense, carrying the story of everything that lives in this vast, dark ocean. Feel the pressure on your body constant, and even a reminder of the weight of the water above you, kilometers of ocean pressing down. Feel the slow, powerful beat of your heart, once every 10 seconds steady and sure, pumping blood through your massive body, delivering oxygen to tissues that have learned to thrive on very little. Feel the absence of worry, the absence of fear. You have lived for centuries, you have survived ice ages and warm periods, times of plenty and times of famine. You have been here through it all, and you will continue to be here. There is no past to regret. There is no future to fear. There is only now, this moment, this slow glide through the darkness. And as you drift, let your own thoughts grow quiet. Let the worries of the day dissolve into the water. Let the memories and plans and anxieties simply float away, like bubbles rising to the surface, growing smaller and fainter until they disappear entirely. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to fix or solve or understand. For now, you can simply be. The water is dark and cold and still. The shark is ancient and patient and slow, and you are safe here, floating in this space between waking and sleeping, between thought and dream, between the world above and the world below. The centuries pass like moments. The moments pass like centuries, and in the deep, dark water, time loses all meaning. There is only the slow, steady movement forward, only the quiet existence, only the drift. Let yourself sink deeper now, deeper into the water, deeper into comfort, deeper into sleep. Your body grows heavier, softer, more relaxed with each breath. Your mind grows quieter, dimmer, more peaceful with each passing second. The shark swims on and you drift, with it sinking slowly into the depths where even the shark does not go, into the place where consciousness fades and dreams begin. The ocean holds you, the darkness surrounds you, and somewhere far above the ice glows faintly with the memory of light. Good night.